bring to Congress as opposed to a Republican president. Country with a significant military. Why Israelis are nervous about Iran's position in the world generally. I've said this. But what I've also said is that all those threats are compounded if Iran gets a nuclear weapon. I challenge those who are objecting to this agreement, number one, read the agreement before they comment on it. Number two, to explain specifically where it is that they think this agreement does not prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, and why they're right and people like Ernie Moniz, who's an MIT nuclear physicist and an expert in these issues, is wrong. Why the rest of the world is wrong. And then present an alternative. And if the alternative is that we should bring Iran to heel through military force, then those groups should say so. And that will be an honest debate. All right.
Mr. President, if I can, Prime Minister Netanyahu said that you have a situation where Iran can delay 24 days before getting access to military facilities.
I'm happy that that's a good example. So let's take the issue of 24 days. This has been, I think, swirling today, the notion that this is insufficient in terms of inspections. Now, keep in mind, first of all, the centrifuges, parts, that entire infrastructure that we know about, we will have sophisticated 24/7 monitoring. So then the issue is, what if they try to develop a covert is that it makes it very difficult to set up a covert program. And if, in fact, we're counting the amount of uranium that's being mined and suddenly some's missing on the back end, explain it to you. So we're able to track what's happening along the existing national organization charged with implementing the Non-Proliferation Treaty and monitoring. EA will have the ability to say, that undeclared site, we're concerned about. We see something suspicious. And they will be able to say to Iran, we want to go inspect that. Right. In the agreement, we've set it up so we can override Iran's objection. And we don't need Russia or China in order for us to get that over with. And if they continue to object, we're in a position to snap back sanctions and declare that Iran's in violation of cheating. As for the fact that it may take identify an undeclared site that we're suspicious, we're going to be monitoring what the activity is, and that's going to be something the entire time. And by the way, if there is nuclear material, your high school physics will remind us that leaves a trace. And so we'll know that, in fact, there was a violation of the agreement. Jonathan, this is the most vigorous inspection and verification negotiated. Is it possible that Iran decides to try to cheat despite having this entire inspection and verification? Obviously, as a discussion. I think my key goal when I turn over the keys to the president, the next president, is that we are on track to defeat ISIL. That they are much more contained and we're moving in the right direction. That we have jump-started a process to resolve the civil war in Syria, which is like an open sore in the region, and is giving refuge to terrorist organizations who are taking advantage of that chaos. To make sure that in Iraq, not only have we pushed back ISIL, but we've also created an environment in which Sunni, Shia, and Kurds are starting to operate and function more effectively together. And to be in a conversation with all our partners in the region about how we have strengthened our security partnerships so that they feel they can address any potential threats that may come, including threats from Iran. And that includes providing additional security assurances and cooperation to Israel, building on the unprecedented cooperation that we have already put in place and support that we've already put in place. It includes the work that we've done in the GCC, with Camp David, making sure that we execute that. If we've done those things, then the problems in the Middle East will not be solved. And ultimately, it's not the job of the President of the United States to solve every problem in the Middle East. The people in the Middle East are going to have to solve some of these problems themselves. But I think we can provide that next president at least a foundation for continued progress in these various areas. The last thing I would say, and this is a longer-term issue, is we have to address the youth of the region with jobs and opportunity and a better vision for the future, so that they are not tempted by the nihilistic, violent, dead end that organizations like ISIL offer. Again, we can't do that entirely by ourselves, but we can partner with well-intentioned organizations, states, NGOs, religious leaders in the region. We have to do a better job of that than we can do so far. All right, Michael Crowley.
Do you agree, and is that a dialogue that we actively seeking? And what about the fight against ISIS? What would it take for there to be explicit cooperation between the West and Iran?
I do agree that we're not going to solve the problems in Syria unless we're buying from the Russians, the Iranians, the Turks, our Gulf partners. It's too chaotic, there are too many factions, there's too much money and too many arms flooding into the zone. It's gotten caught up in both sectarian conflict and geopolitical jockeying, and in order for us to resolve it, there's going to have to be agreement among the major powers that are interested in Syria that this is not going to be won on a battle. So Iran's one of those players, and I think that it's important.
Last week, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff said under no circumstances should there be any relief for Iran in terms of ballistic missiles or conventional weapons. It is perceived that was the last-minute capitulation in these negotiations. And independently, I feel you've left the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff on the ground.
I got to give you credit maybe for how you craft those running jails? Major, that's nonsense. You should know that. I've met with the families of some of those folks. Nobody's content. And our diplomats and our teams are working diligently to try to get them out. Now, if the question is why we did not tie the negotiations to their release, think about the logic that creates. Suddenly Iran realizes, you know what, maybe we can get additional concessions out of the Americans by holding these individuals. Makes it much more difficult for us to walk away if Iran somehow thinks that a nuclear deal is dependent in some fashion on the nuclear deal. And by the way, if we had walked away from the nuclear deal, we'd still be pushing them just as hard to get these folks out. That's why those issues are not connected. But we are working every single day to try to get them out, and won't stop until they're out and rejoin with their families. With respect to the chairman's testimony, to some degree I already answered this. The arms embargo under this particular new UN resolution, not only do we need multilateral and unilateral authorities that allow us to take action where we see Iran engaged in those activities. So we have not lost those legal authorities, and in fact, part of my pitch to the GCC countries, as well as the Prime Minister
into that equation, and what gaps remain for you in the towards the end?
Reform. Obviously, I gave a lengthy speech yesterday, but this is something that I've been thinking about a lot. Been working first with Eric Holder, now with the Revelation about. We've been working on along with other processes. It's an outgrowth of the task force that we put together, post-Ferguson and the darker case in New York. Source of resolving the opportunity there. But I think it is a part of the broader set of challenges that we face in creating a more perfect union. And the good news is that more diversion programs like drug courts, then can we do a better job on the rehabilitation side inside of prisons so that we are preparing these folks who are eventually going to be released to re-enter the workforce. On the back end, are we doing more to link them up with re-entry programs that are effective? And this may be an area where we could have some really significant bipartisan legislation that doesn't eliminate all the other challenges we've got. Because the most important goal is keeping folks from getting into the criminal justice system in the first place, which means early childhood education, good jobs, and making sure that we're not safe. More meaningful to me than visiting as president, because I can actually get out. Should have no tolerance for rape. All right. Have we exhausted Iran questions here? I think there's a helicopter that's coming, but I really am enjoying this Iran debate. What topics that may not have been touched upon, criticisms that you've heard that I did not answer. We're not leaving any stones unturned.
Thank you, President. I'll be brief. The argument has been made that Iran now has a cash windfall, billions to spend. Your people seem confident they're going to spend it at home. Why are you confident they're not going to spend it on Army Hezbollah, Army Bashar al-Assad, etc.?
I think that's a great question, and I'm glad you brought it up. I think it is a mistake to characterize our belief that they will just spend it on daycare centers and roads and paying down debt. We think that they have to do some of that because Rouhani was elected specifically on the premise of improving the economic situation inside of Iran. That economy has tanked since we imposed sanctions. So the notion that they're just immediately going to turn over $100 million to the IRGC or the Quds Force, I think runs contrary to all the intelligence that we've seen, the commitments that the Iranian government has made. Do we think that with the sanctions coming down, that Iran will have some additional resources for its military? Right. Well, so let's address this issue of, because that's the other big argument that's been made. All right, let's assume that the deal holds for 10 years. Iran doesn't cheat. Now, at the end of 10 years, some of the restrictions have been lifted, although, remember, others have stayed in place for 15 years. So, for example, they've still got to keep their stockpiles at a minimal level for 15 years. The inspections don't go away. Those are still in place 15, 20 years from now. Their commitment under the Non-Proliferation Treaty does not go away. That's still in place. The additional protocol that they have to sign up for under this deal, which requires a more extensive inspection and verification mechanism, that stays in place. So there's no scenario in which a U.S. president is not in a stronger position 12, 13, 15 years from now. If, in fact, Iran decided at that point they still want to get a nuclear weapon. Keep in mind, we will have maintained a one-year breakout time. We will have rolled back their program, frozen their facilities, kept them under severe restrictions, had observers. They will have made international commitments supported by countries around the world. And hold on a second. And if at that point they finally decide, you know what, we're going to cheat, or not even cheat. At that point they decide openly, we're now pursuing a nuclear weapon. They're still in violation of this deal and the commitments they've made internationally.